I'm Danny. This is Asha. We're two Kiwis who, after 5 years living in London, bought a sailboat called Bacchus and set off on an adventure to sail home to New Zealand. We sailed the south coast of England, the Atlantic coast of France, Spain and Portugal, the Canary Islands, and then all 19 days across the Atlantic Ocean to the paradise of Barbados. We spent 6 months exploring some of the beautiful islands in the Caribbean, got a little waylaid by a global pandemic, and are now continuing our voyage home. Follow us on our adventure. After 3 months in French Polynesia, we finally dropped the mooring for the last time to begin our final passage back to New Zealand. We naughtily left in a bit of a hurry to avoid paying an extra night's mooring fees. Hopefully karma doesn't catch up with us.
And we are underway. Let's sail this boat home. Bora Bora disappearing behind us. We've got a really nice 17, 18, 19 knots on the beam. Bacchus has got one reef in and we're humming along.
Woohoo! Let's go home! You!
We're making excellent progress on this first day. It's a bit of a bucking bronco ride and you just got to kind of hang on and just let the boat go. But we've got the wind right on the beam and the sea is, there's a little bit of a swell there but it's not too bad. So we're doing great speeds, we've got about 20 knots of wind. And yeah, I think we've averaged just over 7.5 knots since we left Bora Bora this morning. So it's like 1:30 in the afternoon now, so really pleased. Sun's out, the books are slowly drying from that disaster yesterday, and yeah, the boat feels really good, powered up, not too heavy, and yeah, really nice. For this passage down to New Zealand, it's really important that we can maintain good speed. I don't want to be out here on this piece of water for any longer than I have to. Cyclone season officially starts in a couple of days and the water between New Zealand and the Pacific Islands is a real bowling alley for low pressure systems that come out of the Tasman Sea. So speed is really important, not just from a, you know, we want to get there perspective, but also from a safety perspective. So we've really gone to war on weight. We're carrying, we've worked out probably 200 to 250 kilos less in gear than we were for the Pacific crossing, the first Pacific crossing. So most of that is water, which we've gotten rid of with only Danny and I on board and only a 3-week voyage. We're just carrying 300 litres of water, which is heaps, instead of our usual 500. And we've got a lot less food on board. Of course, we're finishing up in New Zealand and my mother has a very well-stocked pantry, so we don't need to have all of the tons of food that we left Panama with. Yeah, so Bacchus feels good. We had quite a squally first night last night, but with good speeds, and then the wind's dropped right off and gone forward this morning. So we've got full sail up, we're doing about 5 knots, and we're sort of just creeping towards the trade winds. We're hoping to break through this trough of low pressure ahead of us and get into the trades hopefully tomorrow morning, and then we'll be off.
What's she doing?
Just letting some fresh air come through the hatch, so it's really stuffy down here, but I'm ready to slam it closed if we take a wave over the bow.
Hi.
Hey, what you doing in here?
Well, I'm planning on making a pie, but I made some pastry before we left, but it's like a pastry rock, so we'll see if it softens and I can roll it out.
So the sun's just come up on day 3 and we've spent the night crossing this low pressure trough which is stretching across the map between the Society Islands and the Cook Islands, and the trough is probably about 100 miles wide, I think. It's a little bit hard to tell on the wind maps, but we've had northerly winds on the Society's side, which we were reaching down through, and then we've hit the trough, and there's very, very little wind. It's very, very gentle little zephyrs of breeze, and then we're hoping to find the trade winds on the other side, which should be blowing at 20 knots. So they should rocket us along our way towards New Zealand. So we had the engine on for about 8 hours in the last 12, just helping to push us through this very, very light wind. As usual on this passage, I'm trying not to burn too much diesel because we don't carry huge amounts. I've probably got enough diesel for about 100 hours of steaming, and I'm expecting to need to use quite a bit of that at the end if the high pressure system that we're hoping is present to the east of New Zealand. It's going to be a light winds finish, so hoping not to burn all of my diesel at the beginning of the trip. When the wind's really light like this, I find it easier just to let the autopilot do the driving instead of the hydrovane. One of the disadvantages to a wind self-steering system like a hydrovane is that in very light airs it can struggle just because it doesn't have enough wind to actuate the vane. So we're fortunate in that regard because we do have the autopilot, and it steers quite a good course in the light air. That's why Florence is standing upright behind me, and the steering wheel itself is wiggling from side to side as the pilot drives.
Today on Bacchus, we are fixing things. Tell us what we're fixing, Captain.
Our hydrovane Florence is a little bit out of alignment. I don't know if you can see here, but the tiller arm should be sitting perpendicular, and it's probably about 5 to 10 degrees off. So I think what's happened, the tiller arm assembly clamps onto the shaft in here, and I think that's come a little bit loose, and with the force of the steering, it's moved a bit round to the side. So I'm going to try and loosen the bolt off and just realign it. And there's not too much wind, which is nice, but there is a bit of a roll. My challenge is going to be not dropping any tools. Is that better than it was? It looks like it's still a bit out of alignment.
Yeah, it still looks like it's a bit to the left.
Yeah, it's that little job done. Still got all my tools. What do we do now?
What do? We've already had 12 coffees.
Had lots of coffee. Yeah. Dunno, read a book.
Catch a fish.
Catch a fish.
Come on, fish. We're now starting to see some big sets of waves coming through from the southeast, which is a good sign before we just had the waves coming from the northwest, which means that we should be a bit closer to the trade winds. Hopefully we can shut the donkey off soon and pick up some speed and get sailing again.
The engine's been on all day now. This trough that we're trying to get across is bigger than I'd anticipated, and it seems to be stretching bigger as I look at the weather map. The trade winds are at least 40 miles ahead of us still. We got an email from another boat that's in that position and they've still got no wind. So we're going to have the engine on for a while, I think. And we're burning a lot of diesel. So yeah, I don't feel like I've got very much choice at the moment because I want to keep moving on this passage. I don't want to sit around flopping around waiting for wind. but at the same time we don't have heaps of diesel. So we're motoring very gently. I've got the engine doing about 1700 RPM, where it really only sips about 1 litre an hour of diesel. So we'll stretch out our reserves as best we can that way. But yeah, I really hope that we find the trades soon, but it doesn't look like it'll be for another 10 hours maybe, something like that. I've just woken up to the very nice sensation of Bacchus being on the other tack, which I think means that we might have found the trade winds and got across that trough that we've been trying to get over for the last wee while. So that's quite a nice feeling to wake up to.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Sleep well?
I slept so well.
Yeah, we found the trade winds and then we lost them actually. It just died again, so I had to put the engine on for a couple more hours. And then we've only got a very light breeze, but it's enough to sail.
Lovely.
So, yep, we're sailing again, and hopefully it'll pick up over the next hour or so. And yeah, we can come. At the moment, our track is a little bit low, but while the wind's light, we kind of have to stay hard on the wind. We can come back up in a while, I think.
Very nice. Oh, and it might be a little bit drier too. The sky looks a little bit clearer. But less of those grey, wet rain clouds that we had sitting on top of us yesterday. So yeah, what a good day. What a nice thing to wake up to.
We've just had an email from Beneteau, the boat that's about 80 miles ahead of us, to say that they've gone from having 15 to 25 knots, gusting 30 to 25 to 35 knots. Gusting 40. So that's a pretty good warning for us to know that we're possibly going to go into some pretty heavy weather. We've got probably about half an hour left of light, so I think we're just going to do a sail change and change the jib over to our heavy weather number 4. We've already got 3 reefs in, so we'll probably leave the main as it is and just reduce our speed while we've got this. And then hopefully we're prepared for if we get walloped later on tonight.
Yeah, gosh, it's pretty good having a canary in the coal mine ahead of us in the form of Beneteau to give us little updates like that. Really helpful. I'm just updating the forecast that we've got at the moment to see whether there's anything showing on the forecasts for that extra wind ahead of us. But yeah, we'll do a quick sail change while it's not too wild. Well, that sail change has made such a difference to how Bacchus feels. We've got sort of between 20 and 25 knots now, and when we were doing the sail change, sort of up at the upper end of that, and with the rolled up Genoa, even with it really rolled up, she still felt very overpowered, but now she's fine. We're sort of standing upright, we're still doing about 6.5, 7 knots through the water, and the boat feels fine. You know, there's 24 knots right now and we've just got the wind just after the beam and she's very happy. No problems at all. There's a lot of wind out there tonight. It's really howling. It's regularly going over 30 knots and the waves are really starting to build. I'm just about to go off watch and try and get some sleep, so Danny's in the cockpit just keeping an eye on everything. We've got our 3rd reef in the main, we've got the little number 4 jib. The boat feels pretty balanced. The thing I'm concerned about is the waves potentially if they get bigger because they are on the beam. So we've got washboards in the companionway and we're clipped on. Yeah, but it's a bit frightening, and I I think it's probably challenging for Danny being on watch on her own in this as well. But I know I need to get some sleep so that I can continue to function. So I'm leaving all of my gear on. I'm just going to curl up on the beanbag on the floor. Whoa, there's a big one. I'm just going to curl up on the floor and try and get a couple of Zs. But yeah, tough night to sleep on. It's bloody loud down here. And to top it off, we've got a big electrical storm going on as well. We just had a big bolt of lightning land really close to the boat. That was a proper screamer. So we've chucked all the electronics in the oven. Don't know whether that works or not. Yeah, hold on. It's going to be a really exciting night, I think.
Okay.
You're okay?
Yeah.
That's a big bolt, eh?
It was so bright. Like it totally blinded me. And then the noise.
Yeah. It's a big crash.
Oh man.
What a night, hey?
Yeah, this is a really hard one.
You're doing so well.
Thanks.
Just had a report from the boat in front of us that the wind's continuing to build and conditions are getting quite bad up there. So we're going to drop the main in preparation for that. We've got about 30-35 knots at the moment. Bacchus feels pretty balanced, but the boat ahead of us is reporting 50 knots. So yeah, this is quite a nasty little system, and it doesn't show on any of the forecasts. I've just downloaded new ones over the satellite phone, and we should just have trades 20 knots at the moment. So I don't know what this is, but it's pretty ugly. So yeah, we're going to batten down for a proper blow. So you can see how our course has changed there as the wind has swung. We've bared away, but the wind is coming from sort of 210 now. It was coming straight out of the east. So there's definitely there's a weather system of some sort here. Danny's just popped her head down the companionway and told me we've got sustained 40 knots outside now. We have dropped the main. We've just got the number 4 up now. Still seeing double-digit speeds. Bacchus is sometimes hitting 10-11 knots with just that little bit of sail up. So this is something that's not on the forecast charts, but with the way the wind is turning, it makes me think that it's a low pressure system, quite a tight, small one. But I don't know. I don't know which way it's moving. So yeah, we're just gonna have to hang on and ride this.
Tonight has just been the worst night for sailing that I've ever had. I'm completely put off sailing. We've finally got a little bit of respite from the wind after 5 hours of 40 knots. And the rain is just, you can't hear anything, it's so loud. Completely drenched, so much wind. And we're having to dodge the Cook Islands, of course. We're right next to islands while this is all going on, and the wind is changing. Look at our track, you can see as the wind changed, we've had to jibe up.
Look at that. Yeah, it hasn't been a particularly enjoyable evening. But the best thing to do is put both the washboards in, close the hatch, leave the wind vane steering, and come down below into some warm, dry clothes. There's no point having a lookout because you can only see about a boat length in front of us because of the rain. So yeah, we are just getting clear of one of the atolls in the Cook Islands. Once we're clear of that, I'll probably jibe us back again, and we'll be running northwest before this little storm. Big storm, we don't even know what it is because it's not on any of the forecast charts.
I I'm just emailing a weather guy in Australia who I previously got some details for, who's supposed to be a guru, and I've just sent him as much information as I can about what we've just experienced, hoping that he can give us some insight into what this is that we're in and where it's tracking, so we don't just go and plant ourselves back into the same weather system again. I mean, we won't hear from him. It's 1 o'clock in the morning, so we won't hear from him for a while. But
yeah, but I mean, if this is persisting tomorrow, you know, we don't know how big this thing is, how far it stretches. So yeah, but look, we're fine. We've got a good little boat. She's holding up really well, and we're safe. And yeah, we're wet and cold, but we're going to be just fine. But that was a wild evening. Wasn't really expected. But I think we handled it pretty well. The wind vane did most of the steering, which was great. Even after I had to do that little realignment job the other day, which I'm so glad I did when it was calm, the wind vane managed pretty well. Yeah, and the boat held up just fine. Yeah, it sort of gave Danny and I a little bit of a fright though, I think, just because it wasn't forecast, you know, and I guess the lesson there is you just have to be ready for that, and you can't place too much reliance on these forecasts because they are just an educated guess. They're not gospel at all. So yeah, I don't know what that was that got us, but it had a lot of power in it and a lot of rain. Holy moly, that was a lot of rain. I've not seen rain like that last for so long. I'd say that the whole system probably lasted about 10 hours, and it dumped down pretty much the entire time. Really, really torrential rain. Yeah, so now today the wind's gone back to the east and it's down to about 19, 20 knots. And yeah, we've still got the leftover sea from that blow, so it's a bit lumpy. But yeah, make some more progress towards New Zealand.
the morning after the storm, everything's a lot calmer. We've just got the Genoa up just to take us slowly. We've got no interest in speed at the moment. Just want to chill out for a bit. Ash is sleeping, well deserved. He was up most of the night. Big night for him. Yeah, and the sun is out, so all of the wet stuff has been pegged around the boat to dry. One funny thing that did happen last night though is at one point Flo couldn't really drive. She was on a suicide mission, and the wind was just blasting us at 10 knots straight towards an atoll. So Asher took over the wheel and I went to put Flo into neutral so that she wouldn't be fighting him. And as I did it, I somehow must have pulled the tag on my life jacket. And my life jacket, you can see here, fully inflated on me in the middle of all of the drama last night. Which is quite funny. But we've got spare life jackets and spare gas cylinders, so it's not a problem. Yeah, exciting night. Don't want to ever do that again.
I didn't appreciate how fast we went last night. I've just looked up what our maximum speed was. This is speed through the water. Have a look at this number. That is really, really fast for a little 36-foot boat with a very small headsail up at that time. Oh, man, that was a lot of wind. Even though that's behind us, in the east, it's actually the sunset. Red sky at night, sailor's delight. Hopefully that means we'll have nice weather tomorrow.
Ash has never seen that before when the sun sets in the west, obviously, but you get an awesome sunset in the east as well. First time.
Never seen it before. Really tripping me out. Learn something new every day. Danny's doing really well in the galley. We've got the swell on the beam, so it's a bit rolly. But she is persevering. It's omelettes for breakfast. Got to eat all this fresh stuff before we get to New Zealand, because we're just going to have to chuck it over the side otherwise. Today looks like a nicer day for sailing, I think. Yesterday we had a lot of cloud and we still had the threat of thunderstorms hanging around. None of them actually got us, but we could see the lightning crackling on the horizon, and the sky was kind of grey and ominous, and in the back of my mind I just couldn't help thinking about that really fierce little electrical storm that we went through a couple of days ago. I was just really hoping that we didn't have to go through another one. So it's nice to have a bit more blue sky today and a bit more sunshine, and the wind is really pleasant. We've got sort of 17 knots, sometimes up to 20 on the beam, and we are heading southwest towards NZ. It's another wet night out here, but it's a bit nicer than some of the others that we've had. The lightning is all the way down on the horizon instead of being right on top of us, and the boat is really nicely balanced. I find with my sail trim, because I'm not particularly good at it, it's sort of 50% luck and 50% skill, and today my luck and my skill have converged, and I've got the boat sitting quite happily. So we've got about anywhere from 20 to 26 knots of wind on the beam, but the boat is tracking in a nice straight-ish line depending on the waves, and the hydrovane's able to drive. So we're doing great speed and just barreling along under these rain clouds. So I wish it was a bit drier, but otherwise, lovely night to be sailing. So the big picture for the weather for this passage is a lot more confusing and complicated than our typical weather routing scenarios when we're in the trades. We've got sort of high pressure systems that are driving the trades that are helping to take us down to New Zealand, but we've also got some lows sweeping through there and a couple of troughs as well. So it's been quite squally and rainy and wet. And the wind has moved around quite a lot, and as we get closer to New Zealand we can expect that to get worse. So there's a lot of decisions to make about how we approach New Zealand, and to help us do that we've enlisted a meteorologist in Western Australia, a guy called Bruce. So we're in touch with him by email, and Bruce sends us a weather forecast for our local area of ocean each day. And he makes suggestions about where we should be aiming to try and get us to New Zealand as quickly as possible, and avoiding any nasties, of which there are plenty out there at the moment. So at the moment we've hardened up on the wind on Bruce's suggestion, so we've got the wind just forward of the beam, and we're trying to make ground to the south. So we're on a course of about 220, and we're doing that because the trade winds, which we're in at the moment, are going to strengthen significantly in the next 24 to 48 hours. Something I really like doing when we're reaching like this is you can come up onto the foredeck and you can just stand and lean against the mast, and you get this great sensation of the speed of the boat, and looking back to the cockpit there's nobody in it, and the hydrovane's doing the steering and the sails are just kind of balanced. And it's just so cool how the boat will just truck along in a straight line without any human input. I love it. Things I don't love are the rattle of the luff of my mainsail and the state of my sail bag, which see is completely falling to bits. The batten's coming out, the UV has totally ruined the bag, so we'll have to shout Bacchus some new canvas work when we get home. Wind has really built overnight. It's on the beam, and it's probably getting close to, I don't know, 26, 27, 28 knots now. In other news, it's bloody cold. Last night both Danny and I slept underneath a duvet, which we've not done since the Canary Islands almost a year ago. We haven't used a duvet on the bed, we've only had sheets. And this morning I've got double layers of merino on, I've got my long johns, I'm going to go and put a hat on. It's bloody freezing out here. I don't know if we should be going south, this doesn't seem sensible. Maybe we should go back to the tropics.
I'm very peeved off. It doesn't sound like hard work, but making a pot of porridge out here in these conditions is really hard. And then I made the pot and tasted it, and it's mouldy. The oats have gone mouldy, you can't eat it, it's inedible, it's disgusting. So then I have to wash up the pot, which again, it just takes forever. And you get bruises on your hips, and it's such a pain, and you're still cold and hungry, and no porridge. So I'm pissed off. But Ashley made me a peanut butter and honey wrap, so now I feel a little bit better.
Trying to provide a consolation prize. Yeah, it's difficult to do anything when it's like this. Everything's rolling around, you go down below and you just feel like you're being chucked around like a bit of a pinball. After the great porridge debacle yesterday with the mouldy oats, this morning I've made a rice pudding for breakfast, which is almost porridge when you think about it, just with a different grain. So yeah, we're having that instead, which is nice, warming us up. And the wind has backed off now, which is lovely. So we're down to about 18, 19 knots, and it's swung to the east, out of the southeast, so that's really good. So we've reached 25 degrees south, which is the line where Bruce, the meteorologist, told us that the thunderstorms would stop. So we're safe from those now, or that band of thunderstorms that we were trying to escape. And so we've been able to point the bow west, and we're heading for New Zealand very much now, the northern tip of New Zealand. So we're getting pretty close to New Zealand now. It's becoming very real. And Danny's got some exciting news. She has found herself a job for when we get home. She's going straight back to work.
Yep, I've just accepted a job offer today over satellite phone at Tourism New Zealand, who I used to work for them in London, so working for their New Zealand team, which will be great. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, but a bit weird to think about going back to the office.
And she is going straight back to the office. We are going to arrive, and a couple of days later she'll be flying down to Wellington to go and meet teams and get assignments and whatnot, and then she'll be working from home up in Kerikeri where we're building the house. So that's going to be pretty cool. Yeah.
Super exciting.
And we've got about 1,000 miles to go. Not long now. Man, what a difference having the wind after the beam makes. We've got the wind at about 110 degrees now. Still blowing 20-21 knots, but because it's now sort of a deep reach instead of a tight reach, here's a wave, it's just so much more pleasant. The boat is feeling really good, and it's just a much more comfortable ride. It's faster, we're pointing in the right direction. It's really lovely. So dictating everything as we come down to New Zealand on this trip is going to be this low pressure system, which you can see forming here in the Tasman Sea, just to the west of New Zealand. So if I hit play, and we'll see the little boats start to move, you can see that low really starting to spin there, and it moves across the North Island just as we sort of make our approach down, and then it kind of dissipates. And that's what this particular forecast is suggesting will happen. But it's really important that we know for certain where that low's going and what it's doing, because that could make our life really difficult as we approach. So we're talking to Bruce the weatherman about that, and we'll be watching that forecast really carefully. We will stay north of this line here, which is 30 degrees, until we know what that low is up to. And we won't make our move down until we know that it's clear to do so. The gods must be smiling on me this morning. When the sun came up, I noticed that one of the batten cars on the main had come apart in the night. We had a bit of light air and the sail was flogging a bit. And so I came and pulled the main down, and in the process of pulling the main down, I found two of these little metal brackets which go into the batten car, which allow the whole thing to work. And both of them had just landed on the deck and were still just sitting there at the foot of the mast. I couldn't believe it, because we were really rolling around last night. And the only thing that appears to have disappeared is the little pin that holds the whole lot together. And the pin is the one thing that I have a spare for. If I'd lost one of those brackets, then I don't have any more of them, so we would have had to work out some other kind of fix. So that's really cool. I just slot a new pin in, and I think the whole thing will just go back together and keep on working. So that's the car in the batten pocket, and they need to attach on there like that. On there like that, and then that guy will slot in. I can't really film it with only one hand. There it is, new pin in place, brackets are there. The pin's a little bit long, you can see it sticking out the back there, just there, but I think it'll do until we get home at least. I can fit a proper one there. But yeah, amazingly good luck. Those two little brackets survived falling from halfway up the mast, bounced onto the deck, and then just stayed there. Amazing.
Good morning, it's 6 o'clock on day 12, sun's just popped up, and we have got 10 knots, but it is from directly behind us, so we're just waiting for it to go north so we can get a little bit more speed, but until then we're just ghosting along on the Genoa. I think our apparent wind's about 5 knots, which is just enough to keep sailing, but we're going very, very slowly, maybe 2 to 3 knots. But we are heading in the right direction, so of course we could come up, but then we're going to head off north somewhere, which is not what we want to do. So hopefully in the next 24 to 48 hours the wind will head north and then we'll get a bit more speed. But yeah, until then it's just a very quiet, relaxing ride. The mood on Bacchus is a little bit frustrated at the moment. The captain certainly is very frustrated. We have just still got no wind. Well, we've got 10 knots of wind, but it's not moving to the north like it's forecast to, which means we really are struggling to sail in it, especially with a little bit of swell. We lose the wind out of the sails, and we're going very slowly. And the problem is we're trying to chase the wind. It's going to die. So if we don't get across quickly, then it'll just disappear in front of us, and we're still 700 miles away from home, and we certainly don't have enough diesel to burn to get us all the way home using the engine. So we're sort of unsure what to do now, but our plan is to use the engine for the next 6 or so hours to see if we can find the wind and then reassess. We've cracked open a couple of beers to celebrate being in the New Zealand time zone and try and make us feel a little bit better. But yeah, the captain's a bit cranky. I'm not sure if the beer's going to help.
Yeah, muted celebrations today about getting into the New Zealand time. But yeah, it's tough looking at the wind maps. There's just blue holes opening up everywhere, and we're a long way from home. And yeah, I'm burning diesel in a situation now where I could sail, except I can't sail the course that I want. You know, I'm trying to go southwest, and I pretty much have to sail almost northwest to make the sails work as light as. Yeah, southeast or northwest. Yeah. So yeah, it's really frustrating. I mean, we could just sit out here and flop around and wait for the next system to come through. But the problem with that is that this is a bit of a bowling alley for bad weather. So you either have no wind like this, or you have quite ugly low pressure systems that come through and get you. So overnight we found a little bit more wind. It's amazing what a difference 2 knots can make. That's all the difference is. We've gone from having 8 knots to having 10 knots, and suddenly we can sail at 5 knots. With that little bit of extra breeze, just enough to keep the sails full and stop them from emptying every time we roll over a little wave. We've got full main, full genoa. I've left the genoa on the pole just to keep it a long way outboard and help it stop it collapsing. And yeah, we're on course, which is lovely. So I really hope this breeze sticks around. We've got, what have we got, like 600 and something miles to get to Opua. So if this wind could hang around for a few more days, that'd be just lovely.
Beneteau. It's day 14, end of our second week, and we have seen some land. Behind me is Roe. It is one of the Kermadec Islands, which I think is owned by New Zealand. We can't stop there though. But it's nice to see land again. Yeah, we're not far from home now. Yep, and once again we've been becalmed. So we've got the donkey running again. I think we've got maybe 1 knot of wind. So yeah, hopefully we'll find some more wind. The water is just so glassy. Just still waiting for our wind to arrive, but we think it's up ahead underneath those clouds. But it just looks so beautiful.
It's the sun coming up over there in the east. We've found a nice little bit of breeze now on the edge of the slow pressure system, and we're hard on the wind but heading towards New Zealand. So we're expecting over the next few days more of this sort of lightish wind and probably some dead patches as well where we'll need to call on the engine again. We've run the engine for 27 hours just recently to get through that light bit after the front, but it's been switched off now, so that's really nice.
My goodness, it is so cold. It's freezing. I just watched a Antarctic documentary and I felt like I was actually there. It was like 4-dimensional. What are you up to, Asher?
I am just moving some of our fresh water from the forward tank into the aft tank. The aft tank's pretty much empty now and the forward tank is still full, and I think we've got too much weight at the front of the boat because we're going to wind which is slamming a lot and really hobby horsing. So I'm just going to move some of the water into the aft tank, and if I'm feeling brave I might even go up and disconnect the anchor and just bring that aft and put that in the middle of the boat somewhere just to try and get the weight balance a bit better.
What's going on?
Woo! We got a fish! Danny was on the loo when he struck. He's off.
I'm half dressed.
Come on, buddy.
Nice. Woo!
It is. Oh.
Hey, Ton.
Hey, Ton. Oh, fancy seeing you here. Oh, this is shaping up to be a slow finish. You can see us up there, and that's where we want to go, and you can see the angle that we're having to sail. There is no more wind on the forecast between us and New Zealand. We've just got a high pressure system that's going to develop now. So it's donkey to the rescue. We've got about 270 miles to go to get to Opua, and my back of the serviette calculations suggest that we've got pretty much exactly 270 miles worth of diesel. So we're needing to really maximise the efficiency with that. So we've been motoring the engine very gently, and we've been sailing whenever we can, and we've even brought the Torpedo back into duty. I attached it on the Pacific as a bit of a joke when we were stuck in the doldrums, and it's actually now giving us a few extra free miles, so it might be the difference that gets us in.
Danny, keep up with us.
Ah, man.
What just happened?
I just crashed the drone into the water. Oh, I'm really gutted. The battery just died. It had 50% battery, and then suddenly it had none, and it was landing. So I guess that's, oh man, I guess that's maybe a consequence of the last swim that it went for. Oh man, it's really stink. It's another bit of rubbish in the ocean, and that's a drone definitely gone. We're not getting that one back. I'm really gutted about that. It's really stink. It's funny, we've really anthropomorphized that little drone. The crash was about half an hour ago, and Danny and I are just sitting in the cockpit having some tuna for dinner, and we're almost eulogizing the little guy. We're talking about all his best shots that he got and his best videos, and remember that one time when you lost reception and couldn't get him back, and there was that time when he got those really great shots at Apataki of Bacchus in the atoll, and yeah, I'm really going to miss that little drone actually. Sort of developed a personality of his own, especially after he had that crash at Whakarava. So yeah, really sad about that, and yeah, but he'll be missed. He did a good job though, got some great stuff for us. It is our last night on passage, would you believe it? Our last night on this voyage from Brighton all the way to Opua in New Zealand, halfway around the world. And we are just motoring across a really calm sea. Another nice sunset going off in front of us, and got our last ever night watch. Danny's got the first half, and I get the sunrise, which is pretty special.
Grooming himself.
I've had problems in the past where customs officials haven't taken me seriously because I look like a dirty pirate. So I'm going to trim my beard, clean my nails, put on a clean shirt, Get myself looking nice for the New Zealand authorities. Maybe they'll treat us kindly. We've just spotted New Zealand.
That little speck
We can see Cape Brett.
is land.
Woohoo!
Land home!
Oh, we're home.
We are home!
Oh, what a feeling. Fantastic. I've been hanging out to see Brett come up over the horizon for so long.
So cool. One last time?
One last time.
Go.
Got some whales over here bringing us in.
Oh, amazing.
This has been the best welcoming committee ever. We saw Cape Brett come up over the horizon, and then like 5 minutes later we had a pod of whales. So really feeling very honoured to be arriving in such good company. So we were on our way in, doing very nicely motor sailing, and there was a little breeze, so I just pulled the engine back to neutral to just see how fast we could sail without the engine. And the engine's been having a little bit of trouble getting fuel, and as soon as I pulled the throttle back it started spluttering, and now it's died, so it's lost its fuel. So we're about 18 miles away from the finish line, and I'm going to have to pull the filters off the engine, I think, and see if they're blocked. I've just pulled the fuel pickup pipe out of our tank. Look at that.
Hey.
That's our blockage. That's why our engine can't get any diesel.
Wow.
Woohoo!
Good job, that's disgusting.
That is disgusting. Look at that, man. Our little engine's been trying to suck through wads and wads of this gunky tar-like shit. That, I think, has got it much cleaner.
Yucky.
Okay, I've reassembled everything. Pulled that big blockage out of the fuel line. Let's see if we can make the engine start. Come on, Christmas.
Come on, Bucky.
2, 3. Come on, dog. Come on, dog. Come on, dog.
Yes, donkey.
Sounds like he's running. Bloody marvellous. We're just watching my mum and dad in their little boat coming out to meet us as we come into the Bay of Islands. We're not really allowed to have any contact with them because we haven't cleared quarantine and COVID checks and all the rest of it, but we can sail around together on the same bit of water. So they're just on their way out now, we can see them.
They've just put their sails up.
Yeah. They've got a classic New Zealand wooden boat, fishing boat design. She was launched in 1910, so she's 110 years old this year, and she's really beautiful, gaff rigged, 28 feet, really nice little boat. Her name's Cora. Bora. This is Ewok lockdown. Over.
You guys are a sight to see. So good to see you. That's fantastic.
We're just absolutely thrilled to be here. It's only sort of sinking in, so it's really, really cool to be seeing it all again. Familiar places. It's lovely.
Yeah, awesome. Man, amazing. You did a good job finding New Zealand.
I know, we even found the right bit of it. That's pretty impressive. Bora just looks gorgeous.
Hey, Jay!
Oh, it's great to see you, not just on YouTube.
We're real! This is so cool. We had Joanna and Bob, Ash's parents, on board when we left Brighton a year and a half ago, and having them escort us into Opua on their beautiful boat Cora, the sun setting, it's just so special. It's the perfect end to an awesome trip.
It's so quiet out here. There's no other boats. Oh man, it's pretty quiet. There has been sunbags, so they were.
So here we are, safely arrived in Opua, New Zealand, our 80th and final stop on this 18-month adventure from the United Kingdom. I can't begin to tell you how glad we are for taking the plunge, and urge you all, if you get the chance, to make your own adventure happen. For those of you who aren't quite ready to say goodbye to us, you're in luck. We're producing one more episode to show you the quarantine process and how we adjusted back to being landlubbers. For the rest of you, thanks for tuning in and supporting us from wherever in the world you call home.